Well, folks, thank you again for joining us this evening. My name is Meg Purcell. I'm one of the public art administrators working on this project, and I'm just going to walk you through what we're talking about with Montbello Central Park Hall. For those of you who haven't joined us before on our pre-application meetings, we're just going to walk through some of the basics just to get us started, so you know a little bit more about the history of our program and how the selection process typically works. And then we'll spend a little bit of time talking about this design-only call so we can answer any of the questions you have, because I'm sure you have a few of them. So just to give you a quick look, the Denver Public Art Program has been around for quite some time. It started in 1988 through an executive order with Mayor Federico Pena. A couple years later, it was then adopted by State Council in 1991. And basically, that sets aside 1% of budgeted construction costs on new capital improvement projects with budgets equal to or more than $1 million for the inclusion of new public artwork. And since the program was established, the city has invested more than $60 million in public art across the city, which has resulted in the installation of probably more than 500 pieces since 1988 at this point. And we also have quite a few that are historic or donated pieces that we own as well. So think of monuments in Civic Center, or a few of our older works were accessed into the collection as well. So we have probably closer to 600 artworks across the collection. It's pretty robust at this point. Each new project that we take on in the 1% program is site-specific and unique, meaning it's created in response to the place and the community in which it resides. The goal for each project is to have the artwork speak to its users. Perhaps it interprets the history of the place or its people and addresses a social or environmental issue. All artwork should enhance the site and users' experience at the site, and all works and projects, no matter where they're located or size of the budget, go through the same process, which we ensure is open, fair, and transparent. And we also include community members in our selection process because we feel their expertise and intimacy with the space is just as important as art's experience. So shifting our idea of what expertise means, right? We also talk a little bit about, aesthetic preference and bias when it comes to working with the panel, pointing out that, there are going to be a lot of artworks that they see, but to make sure that we're judging each application and artist applicant based on the goals of the project and not necessarily what they like. So just to give you some insight on how we prep folks to take a look at applications when they come in. When it comes to the selection process, it's pretty lengthy, and you can see the entire process zoomed out here. You can see there are a lot of meetings that we organize, but really the first step is to create a selection panel. You can see this area marked in gray here on the left. Usually the panel consists of members who live and work in the community, artists, arts professionals, civic leaders, so think your council representation in each district. And for the Montbello Central Park project, we have representatives from District 11 participating. Typically a member of the Public Art Committee, the Denver Commission on Cultural Affairs, and we follow this composition for almost every project that we take on. Once that panel is fleshed out, we pass it along to the Denver Commission on Cultural Affairs, who then approves it and then kicks us off. Once that panel is approved, members meet to cover all the information they need to successfully navigate the project and process. And then their conversations really form the request for qualifications and creation of the call for artists that you all respond to. Once the document is fleshed out, we also send it again to the panel for review and feedback, just to get their okay one more time before we make it live. And that's basically where we are now. Once the application period closes, the panel reconvenes to score applicants based on the goals set forth in the RFQ. And the panelists narrow down the pool approximately to 3 to 5 finalists. And then we invite the finalists to create site-specific proposals that they will present to the panel. And during proposal development, I work to arrange 2 really helpful meetings. One is with the community representatives on the panel. So selected artists have time to speak directly with community members in that way. And then we also have another technical meeting to look at the technical details, let's say, of the site. And for this design only call, also working through some of the preliminary templates that you'll be working with. And then also a site visit. So if you haven't been out there before, we just want everybody to get a good idea of what we're going to be working with within the Montbello community. And then from there, we have everyone present their ideas to the panel at a final meeting or a finalist presentation. And then whoever scores the highest moves forward for the commission. I should note that I don't have a vote in this process. Nobody from the public art department does. Really, we're here to facilitate and provide guidance to the selection panel. And if needed, start herding everyone because, we got a lot of people on these committees. So we try to get them to focus on why they're meeting. And before I move ahead, I just want to make sure that you all are aware of what we're looking for. And you're going to hear me say this a few times in this process. But right now, for this application and request for qualifications, all we're really looking for are 6 to 8 images of your previous work, your artist statement, and your resume to establish the applicant pool. And we'll dive into that a bit further in the next few slides. Generally speaking, anything that one can buy off the shelves is not considered public art for the Percent for Art program. So this includes wayfinding or advertising signage, reproductions of original works or existing artworks that you are looking to sell. The mass-produced objects like bike racks and benches and landscaping are typically not part of what we look for, except for when the elements are intentionally designed by the artist or a major part of the artwork. So think projects that are considered to be eco art or land art or environmental art. Some of that scope kind of bridges between landscape architecture and art, but if there is an artistic intent involved, we do consider that to be public art. We use this example on the right to explain differences to our panel. So here you can see a wayfinding sign on the 14th Street, which in itself is not public art, but there is a small piece of public art attached to it called the 14th Street overlay. So sign, not public art, small sculpture attached to it is. And I just want to expand on this area real quick. The 1% program seeks to create new public artworks in collaboration with the selection panel. So for artworks that are currently on sale or artworks that you think you might want to donate, we have a completely separate program and process, which we can connect on another time. On the flip side, there's a long list of what we consider to be public art, including sculpture of all types made from bronze, glass, steel, ceramic, etc. Paintings, including various media like oils or acrylics, graphic arts, photography, crafts, light, sound art, earthworks, mosaic, etc. In a nutshell, there are a variety of art forms that our program can take. And the panel for this project is looking for something pretty specific, which again, we'll get into a little bit later. So when it comes to the RFQ requirements, all of this information is broken down in the request for qualifications themselves. But we're going to go through each application requirement one by one. Again, at this stage in the Montbello Central Park project, we're only looking for these elements. In submitting fully realized concepts, you could be disqualified. This is not really what the selection panel is looking for at this point. So just make sure you're focusing on past work at this point. So images are really important here. While each panelist will look over your entire application in detail, the first item panelists will see are your images. So you just want to make sure that you have not only the required number of images, but consider the quality of images as well. You want to make sure that images are sized appropriately, the lighting is as good as it can be, and these samples do not need to be of previous public artwork commissions. We are specifically looking for samples of work in this application that are two-dimensional. This could include murals, drawings, paintings, photographs, printmaking, and any other designs to get a sense of your work and style. So you can take a look at these two examples here. While the left shows an interactive artwork, it is a bit difficult to see what's going on here. The depth of field and the plants in the frame are not helping the panel to see the work itself. So if you were to use a similar image to this, I would recommend that you submit either a close-up or a detail as a companion image or a second image so that we can really see what's happening. And the image on the right is somewhat closer to what we're looking for. The artwork takes up the entire frame of the image, and the lighting is appropriate, gives you a good sense of the color palette that the artist is working with. So, definitely try to pick images that are going to give the panel a very clear understanding of what your work looks like. So again, we have seen artists submit developed proposals for these projects through drawings and renderings. And again, try to avoid doing that. At this point, you have limited information about the project, only enough to inform you about what this project is, which means you run the risk of missing the mark with a panel from the beginning. So if you have an idea for a project, that is great, but please make sure that you're only including images of your past work samples. And also be clear in your descriptions. If you have any past works that were a collaborative effort, oftentimes new artists will have apprenticed under experienced public artists and show works that are familiar to the panel. And it's not always a huge deal, but sometimes if you don't disclose this, the panel misunderstands what you're attempting to show and possibly misinterpreting that you're claiming the work solely as your own. So just make sure that you're citing all of your collaborators as much as you can. The resume section is pretty self-explanatory. Simply upload a copy of your resume, no more than 2 pages. And if you're an artist team, submit 1 page per team member only. And your statement of interest, what you're going to be looking to accomplish is a 2,000 character statement. Each RFQ published by the city has different pieces of information that the panel is looking to see or to know. And you can see how this plays out for the Montbello Central Park project. In your statement, I would advise 2 things. If you are copying and pasting from Microsoft Word, you might inadvertently be copying hidden characters into Café, causing some cutoff in your statement at the end. So before pasting text into Café directly from Word, what I would do is paste it into a neutral program like Notepad, so that any hidden characters are visible, and then you can simply delete them and paste them into Café. Proofread your statement as much as you can. We have a lot of different calls at the city, and it's pretty common to see artists apply for several at the same time. And we also see artists copying and pasting same text for each call and not changing project names, which causes instant concern for the panelists, especially community members who are specifically hoping to interact with micro communities in Denver. And if you're responding to a call that's making a specific request, you can use this space to address how you will fulfill that request. So for example, if the selection panel is looking for muralists who are interested in moving in a more sculptural direction, in this case, what you would want to do or share with the panel is how you plan to use this opportunity to move beyond mural work to sculptural work, or what fabricators you might imagine working with to realize your vision. On this project, it's a little bit different because we're working in a design-only way. So in that case, what I would do is take a look at the goals, the site, and the media materials to really build your statement from. That's a good starting place. All right, so I've covered those basic areas, but I want to spend some time talking about this specific project, unless anybody has some initial questions on the front end. And I'm happy to take a beat and answer anything you got. All right. Well, we'll keep on moving along then. So as you may or may not know, this project is located in District 11, just north of I-70, and this neighborhood has a deep history. In full transparency, I'm only going to cover a truncated version today to help open up the conversation, but the request for qualifications has a much more complete history with hyperlinks to the Denver Public Library. So I definitely recommend checking that out if you can. When we talk about the history of any site in the Denver Public Art Collection, we have to go back to the first peoples. And while there is a dearth of oral history and written documentation and archaeological records specifically for the site, we do know that many Native communities did and still do live in relation to the region today. Semi-nomadic indigenous groups such as the Arapaho, Cheyenne, and Ute lived and hunted in this area prior to settlement and colonization of the region. As we also know, the communities that we're talking about were later displaced and brutalized by Eurocentric settlers and by policies enacted by all levels of the American government, despite many injustices. Denver continues to be a home to more than 48 different tribal nations. Montbello neighborhood development largely took off with the annexation of privately owned land in 1965 in an effort to develop the land or area into mixed-use communities. So in particular, it served as an affordable community where middle-class and military families could own their own home. And today the neighborhood is one of Denver's largest and most populous in the city and represents a racially diverse and youthful community, a majority of whom are ages 35 and under. The neighborhood itself stands united and undeterred by adversity, and there has been quite a bit, like sidewalk and pedestrian mobility challenges, food deserts, and school investments. Wonderful leaders like Miss Pam Giner with Montbello Walks, members of the Montbello Organizing Committee and their work on the Freshlow Hub and coming together to reopen Montbello High School in 2023, or simply painting the Montbello canals is due to the depth of community organizing within the neighborhood. So it's really important to know that the Montbello neighborhood is, well, from the city side, has not been invested in enough, and the community has stepped up to support itself in a lot of cases. So something to keep in mind. The parent project goals that largely triggered the 1% ordinance relate to the Elevate Denver bond approved by voters in 2017. And to do this, the Denver Parks and Recreation implemented several improvements to the park, including the creation of a new irrigation system, converting aging sidewalks, new picnic areas, new pedestrian lighting, and a new bicycle pump track near the tennis courts. And given the neighborhood's history again, and having worked on 3 other projects in or near the area, we heard from community representatives on previous selection panels some really great feedback that add additional layers to how we approached gathering some information. So over the past year, we hit the road to set up table events at the Montbello Recreation Center. We held further talks with students at the Montbello High School. We also issued a public survey that digitized some poster questions about what the community really wants to see in terms of themes and sites. And this survey was distributed to the District 11 office, the Montbello Organizing Committee, and the Heal the Hood organizer. So a lot of the information that you see in the request for qualifications is both coming from the selection panel and the broader community. And the site recommended by community members and the selection panel is really focused on the ceiling of the shade structure as a gathering space. Artists who are selected as finalists, again, will receive some updated information about those areas, but essentially what we will be looking for is artist finalists who will be able to design 2 templates that will be metal panels that will be attached to the ceiling. So the work won't be going on to this corrugated metal directly. The design would eventually be either etched or laser cut or even painted to a metallic panel. And again, I mentioned the request for qualification goals and themes. And this is really what the selection panel is looking for in this work. So, and I'm just going to let one more person in here. So they're really hoping for works that are colorful, that are engaging, celebrate and inclusive to all park visitors and families, help amplify the stories of the area while also accurately reflecting the community's heritage and narratives, honoring its past and present contributions. Also possessing excellent group facilitation skills and being enthusiastic about working with nearby community members, particularly elders and youth, to finalize your designs. So community collaboration, as you saw, was a huge part of how we built and made sure that the broader community had buy-in to the themes and goals for this project. And we're looking for the artists to continue some of that work. And again, the panel is strongly encouraging emerging studio and 2D artists who have a connection to the Montbello neighborhood to apply. So again, just to repeat, for the media materials, what we're really looking for at this point are 2D designs that can be drawing, painting, printmaking, photography, graphic design, or typography. Eventually, these designs will be either etched or laser cut or printed onto metal panels. And our team at Denver Public Art will be responsible for sourcing that vendor or a fabricator. And of course, we don't want any of the artists selected for design only to be totally out of the conversation with the fabricator. So what we're also doing is ensuring that once a fabricator is on board, that there is a level of collaboration once you get to the final design point, so that you have some oversight into how the design is being translated to a metal surface. Any questions before we move forward to the call for entry review? We'll walk through applying for an application step by step. But does anybody have any questions about the project in general? And you can just feel free to unmute if you have anything.
I have a question.
Sure.
So for this project, like the location of the project, it's in like a public park.
Yes.
So, are there like hours of operation? So like, so for example, I guess I'm wondering like after dark, um, like I don't know. I often like to incorporate lighting into my art and stuff. So, but if the park is like close it, like say it's a public park and they're like people shouldn't be there after 10 o'clock at night, then maybe that would not be something that folks would be looking for this project, right?
Totally. Yeah, and you bring up a really good point. I think for this particular project, the electrical hookup, there, to my understanding, there's nothing really to tie into in terms of utility. But also, as the artist for this particular call, we wouldn't expect you to, I mean, I guess there could be a conversation about lighting with the fabricator later down the road. But for right now, the selection panel hasn't really identified lighting as a major desire. But yeah, I think the park itself only stays, or their hours are probably from sun up, sundown, year round. It was kind of a word salad. I hope that got to the root of what you were asking.
Yes, thank you.
Sure. Okay. Anything else? And we can definitely circle back to this if you have any questions after we go through the call for entry setup. Alrighty. Well, let's walk through this step by step. If you haven't joined Call for Entry just yet or set up your account, it's really easy. All you have to go to is callforentry.org. Click this link, sign up for free, and fill out all of your information. It'll redirect you back to the login page, and then, of course, ask you some, pretty strength and, difficult security questions here. And then you just log in. And of course, it'll verify. And give me a second while I do that on the side. And thank you for holding. Okay, there we go. Let's verify my email. It always picks the opportune time to walk us through these. Okay, well, we'll just have to do that a different way. It's good to have backups. All right, so like I said, going to callforentry.org, you're just going to sign in. The sign up button for free. Again, you're just going to upload all of the artwork samples that you need. For this particular project, I would definitely recommend uploading samples of your work that are two-dimensional in nature, that'll best support the application for this particular project. And then you're going to click on apply to calls to find the work. And before we even go there, we'll walk through the steps. Uploading media. And again, if you haven't worked through all of this already, this is the area where I was talking about before, to just making sure you're acknowledging any of your collaborators or, co-artists that you're working on projects, just for transparency. And again, applying to calls are also really easy. You just have to go to the search engine, type in Montbello Central Park, and it'll pop up and apply to call. Form questions are nearly identical. You're just going to upload a copy of your resume, submit your statement of interest, and save all of your media materials. And then check out. We don't charge any fees for applications in this process. It will always be a zero amount. And I'm also going to share with you a little trick that if you are like me and like having some information, or you want to change information after you submitted your application, Let's say you will need to alter your artist statement. Maybe you've accidentally forgot to change a project name or something that you need to change. I think a lot of people don't realize that they can reach out to project managers to change some things in your application to resubmit. All you have to do is get in touch with me directly, and I'll show you what I do on my end to do that. So you're just going to give me your name, and you can see all the applications received so far. I'll pull up your individual application. And instead of listing it as received, what I'll do is mark it as incomplete. It'll change automatically. And then on your end, what you'll see is the now ability to go back and edit your application and resubmit if you need to. So again, if you need to change anything on your application, you've already submitted your application, don't panic. All you have to do is just get in touch with me. I will relist your application as incomplete, and then you can go ahead and walk through and edit that again. It's really important to me that you all have an opportunity to submit your best application in these processes. You know, and it happens where you get so excited about a particular project that you want to send it in right away, and just want to go back and make some small edits. So any question on the cafe front? Okay. Well, I am happy to stick around and answer any of the questions that you all have. If you have any questions on this particular call, or you want a little bit more insight into the community that we've been working with so far, let me know. I'm open book. Answer as many questions as you have.
Hey Meg, I have a question.
Sure, go ahead.
First off, I would love to know a little bit more about the community. But my question is, so I got into this conversation a little late, and I heard that the artwork will be placed on like metal sheets. So does that mean it's also going to be like one color that you're looking for? It's mostly just the design and not like
No.
colorful.
Yeah, I think, the community is really looking for colorful work. So at this point, no, it doesn't have to be one color. Actually, most likely what the situation will look like, once we have a final artist on board who was recommended by the selection panel, we'll use the final design as a guide on procuring the fabricator, or the correct or most applicable fabricator to translate your design. And as far as the community goes, we have a lot of information, Rachel, and I'm also happy to send anyone who wants it a copy of the presentation that we're giving today. That's not a problem for us. And there are also links in the request for qualifications that will guide you to the Denver Public Library that give a much more detailed look at the Montbello neighborhood. Much longer and much more in-depth than we're giving today.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. One more question about the metal pieces. Are they also going to be corrugated, or is that going to be flat?
Yep. We're intending them to be flat. They can be textured, but they definitely don't have to mirror what's going on with the underside of this shade structure. One of the benefits to not applying work directly onto the corrugated metal is that in the event Denver Parks and Recreation needs to replace the roof on the shade structure, they won't have to impact the artwork. By installing a separate layer that the artwork is either engraved or etched into instead of the roof itself, they won't have to remove the artwork to do it. It's just a much simpler process. And then we don't have to worry about, them damaging any potential artwork that's placed directly onto that corrugated metal.
Well, thank you.
Sure.
I make a quick question.
Sure.
Just to be clear, so the artist will only be submitting a design, but the artist won't be painting the design on it, or is that also like a possibility, or that's not the situation in this?
I think the idea is to leave a lot of the fabrication and installation work to the second vendor. But like I said, I think there's some wiggle room that we can make because we haven't issued a separate proposal process for the fabricator just yet, not until we have the finalist or the final commissioned artist on board. So I think the intent is to keep them pretty separate, but it's not out of the realm of possibility to work in a little bit more handwork by the artist, if that makes
Okay,
sense.
so would it most likely be like a laser cut design by the fabricator, or like a vinyl print design? That's
Mhm.
mostly what like they're looking for, right? Like not something like the artist will paint in all that, like the whole design, just like submit the design, correct?
Yep.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, of course.
I had a question.
Sure.
So I do not live in Denver, and
Okay.
would these meetings be like virtual or, through a Zoom or something like that? Or is it required to actually like come and fly down, I guess, in the future if this was the
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So I'm going to go back to the meetings that we were talking about. So right now, most of the meetings for the finalists or, artists who are selected for the short list, many of these meetings are digital or virtual, so either on Teams or Zoom. But that said, all artist finalists are offered a stipend. So, if we do organize a site visit, which seems likely, we offer a stipend not only for your proposal development, but also for travel as well. We don't have a final number for the stipend just yet, but we try to make sure that, all things can be covered with your travel, like flights and hotel and things like that. So, yeah. It's interesting too. I think I know I've had several artists in the past who are hoping for our program to make the switch to have our finalist presentations in person, because often you see several artists will make scale models or things that they can walk around or touch. But I think in this particular case, because we're looking for two-dimensional works, it makes sense to stay on a virtual meeting for that last meeting.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure. I'll also say that as far as, when and if you're selected as a finalist, a lot of our admins will not leave you hanging. We can meet with you as often as you want when you're working through your proposal development. And actually, we do arrange an artist 101 to walk through your presentation either the day or a week before your presentation, just to make sure that the technical stuff is taken care of, and the platform is sorted, and that we're here as a support system and backup system. It just in case things happen. Interviews are, even for me, nerve-wracking. So we'll be your second throughout the process if you're selected as a finalist.
Okay, great. Thank you for the information. That's very comforting and helpful.
Yeah, yeah.
Can I ask another question? I'm curious, the funds allocated to this project, are they going to be dedicated to the artist and like the second vendor? Basically, that's the total fund?
Yeah. That is the fund just for the design only contract with the artist. So 50,000 covers your contract execution, your preliminary design, and your final design.
Okay, and are we using a contract of our own that we create, or is this one through the city?
Yes, it's through the city. And actually, let me get you a link here because I think this is helpful. So on our website, denverpublicart.org, if you go to About and For Artists, we actually have a number of resources that are really helpful. So we have a sample of the artist contract, sample of our certificate of insurance, some budget information, a whole load of resources for you to take a look at. But we definitely encourage folks to take a look at the contract language as early as you can, just to make sure, you know, once you go through, or if you make it that far as a commissioned artist, that you are aware of what is expected, or what the city will require later down the road.
I saw that. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Quick question, Meg.
Yeah.
As far as the relationship with the city of Montbello, I'm a Denver artist, but I have family members that live in Montbello. I don't know if that's something that it's like a strong relationship, or is that out of the question, or just to apply?
You know, I think that relationship can be a lot of, it can be interpreted in a lot of different ways, right?
Sure.
You know, I think, yeah, if you have family in the neighborhood, that sounds great. Um,
I
yeah,
don't live there, but I do have just family there, and but I live in Denver, so it's
yeah,
also, yeah, I mean, of course it's better, the more connection you have to the community, but just wanted
yeah,
to ask to see if that was just something out of the way or not, just to.
yeah. And I think like listing what your relationship looks or feels, or like what the community means to you, is a really great way to bulk up your artist statement, right? I think a lot of artists don't see the statement as um, a good way of connecting with selection panelists, right? And I think, you list the connections that you have, and I think even the acknowledgement of having family in the area could, really connect with someone. So, yeah, any ties I think are good.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well, if there's no other questions, I'll say the gift of time back this evening. But if you have any questions, or you want to send me an email before the deadline, please reach out. I'm an open book, like I said. I'm happy to help where we can. And if you have questions about other calls, I'm more than happy to connect you to the right folks. I know we have a lot of other open opportunities right now. I think PSU here is also active, and that's our temporary art program. It's a grant program. So they that particular project, I think, allocates up to $10,000 per temporary art proposal. So, plenty of things to take a look at and apply across the agency, not just our 1%.